I think I was definitely going to be a commentator, an upbringing really of a dreamer. I was obsessed with it. To be fair, I'm probably a bit of a sensitive soul. I think about TV commentary as like building a cake. So it comes down to philosophy, I think. I'm not that interested in my opinion anyway, so I wouldn't give it. I think radio's a joy. Probably 3 times a year do you walk out of the broadcast box 100% satisfied with what you've done. You'd want to change something.
Okay, continuing our gather round chats. Excited to have this man in studio with us here in our apartment, right on Hindley Street, by the way. It's right in the guts of it.
I've seen some stuff.
Yeah. Matty Hill joins us, extraordinary commentator, loving his work across Fox Footy, across Kayo, and the horse racing work you're doing as well, mate. It's great to have you here. Welcome, mate.
Well, Dad, lovely to be here. Thank you for the invite. It's an absolute pleasure to wax lyrical with you guys. It was such a great weekend. I mean, how lucky are we that we can just come to a city and you have, supporters from every single team wandering around, having beers with each other, just walking the streets with each other. It doesn't happen like that in the UK. They'd be belting each other up over there. It's we're so lucky that we've got the best game on earth and it's ours, and we can celebrate it together. It's a joy, really.
Mate, I want to get through this chat. I'm really interested to know how you started in the business, how your career's been, your challenges, your ups and downs, the highlights. But we do start every episode the same way. Ask the same question to every guest we've ever had on this show. And I'm going to give you're going to have open rein. Usually if we interview a footballer, you can't use football. I want to know your greatest sporting achievement, thanks to TABtouch. Of course, BackChat powered by Paywise this year. Yeah. I won't get too radio call-y for you, Matt. But I want to know your greatest sporting achievement. Like I said, you give the caveat, you can't, if an AFL player, we don't want to hear about you kicking 10 goals, but I'll give you full rein. I want to know your greatest sporting achievement. Full stop.
Greatest sporting achievement would have been winning the 800 metres at Little Athletics at the Laverton Oval when I was about 8.
Yes.
And it was a very tactical affair, and Damien Oliver would have been very proud of it. Sat fourth defence and just waited for that last surge at the end. But I think it was a weak field. I think there was only a field of 5, and I was probably started favourite, but in a very ordinary contest.
Could you have called yourself home, do you think?
Well, it's funny you say that, because I reckon about a year or 2 later at the school sports carnival, there was all the action happening there at my high school, and I remember one of my teachers trying to commentate, and after a bit of revving, my schoolmate said, "Mate, you've got to go and grab that microphone," and I did. I jumped up and said, "No, give me that," and I took over, and that was probably the first athletics meeting I ever called in about year 9 at St Paul's College, and so I was always more destined to be on this side of the fence than being out where the action is.
Hey, mate, I've got to respect an 800 runner.
You guys for us. Yeah.
Well, I had no pace. I had absolutely no pace. I can tell you, a lot more enthusiasm than ability in most things. But that was my greatest sporting achievement. And probably, you mentioned not using footy, but probably playing for Footscray in the Little League, getting 2 kicks on the MCG. Against Carlton one Sunday afternoon in front of about 60,000.
Mate, that's a really interesting point you made, because I think sometimes I don't appreciate that enough. I did that as well, right? Like, I remember Ronnie Burns was our umpire, and we were Geelong and number 8 superstar, right? And I'd never forget that, but also went on to play AFL, so I sort of, that moment sort of faded into probably a few others. Sure. But I mean, talk about that, because you're working in footy and in media and commentating now, but was it your dream to be one of those players or was it just, you love footy, you love racing, you love sport?
No, I think I was definitely going to be a commentator, but I do remember, the backyard at home, and I made my granddad make me goal posts, and I'd set up the ground as if it was the MCG on a Saturday with the little texture drawing on the wall for the scores, and I'd even have the race results on there, because that's what it looked like at the Whitten Oval, and I always had this vivid imagination, and I'd kick the football around and call myself as I was doing it, So there was always going to be a commentary aspect in there. And even at home, the lounge room was a race course, and I'd have pencils end to end, and that was the running rail, and it extended all the way into the kitchen. and I'd have horses running, and there was rulers end to end. They had numbers on them, so that was the semaphore board.
Right.
And a back to front picture frame was the winning post, and I'd take the little advertisements out of the magazines and stick them on, and that would be on the winning post. And the straight six at Flemington was the hallway. I think the Melbourne Cup start was just outside my bedroom, and I had little horses running, and I'd be broadcasting them. So I had this vivid imagination, and so for me to go to Waverley Park with my grandma when I was 10, or go and watch the races at Moonee Valley with Grandad, it was just all this stuff that I was taking in, even the moving the barrier stalls, and I was obsessed with it. It was just like a fairyland, and I was just fascinated by it. And to a certain extent, there's still that in me, that boyish love of it, because as we know, look at football nowadays, look at racing nowadays, it gets political, it gets serious. It's a business where I say I'm a sports commentator, but we're actually it's a business, isn't it? But I still think there's that boyish love of it in me that's fascinated by all those little intricate parts.
Where do you think that came from? Because like you said, your friends at the school were telling you get up on the mic. So obviously you've been doing it for a while as a kid. Was it something just clicked, or I don't know?
I think so. It was just something that I wanted to do, and I think a little bit of inspiration as well. I'd sit up in the grandstand, and you'd hear, it was Greg Miles calling at Flemington. You just hear that voice, and when he'd say something, the crowd would react. He'd say, "Here comes Sately," and the whole crowd would react. You think, "Oh, gee," and it stirred you, And I'm 44, so I'm the last of the generation. There's a lot of young callers that are behind me in their 20s now that weren't brought up listening to sport on radio. It was it's all television now. Whereas I remember listening to Rex Hunt and Tim Lane on the radio, Eddie Maguire, Stephen Quartermain on Triple M. They were the football callers on radio. And you get really stirred on by that and the imagery. It's all about putting words to what we're seeing. And I think with sports commentary, because it's not an exact science, because it's not AI, you probably come back the next week hoping to get it right, get it 100%, and you never do. That's why we keep coming back week after week.
Yeah. Eddie Maguire said something very similar.
Yeah, very similar.
Like if we got it right all the time, we wouldn't be rocking up the next week. So that's what's actually...
And you have to embrace the rawness of it. Unfortunately, we've got to a world where, because of social media, I think the punters, if I could call them that, expect you to just be like a machine. But we are human. I mean, you don't want AI replacing football commentators anytime soon, or race callers, but you will make mistakes. But that's why we love it, because when you do get something right, you walk away and you're really rewarded. But I mean, I've openly said it, particularly with race broadcasting and the same with football. Very rarely, very, very rarely, probably 3 times a year do you walk out of the broadcast box 100% satisfied of what you've done. You'd want to change something.
So who's your biggest critic yourself? Like clearly you're getting some feedback from punters, but are you...
Yeah, I mean, the feedback thing's interesting because, I'm not on social media.
Good choice. To be really
maybe I'm just old-fashioned in that respect. To be fair, I'm probably a bit of a sensitive soul, actually. I've worked so hard at what I've done that I find if I find someone giving me something that's a bit negative, I think, gee, that's a bit harsh, and even the positive stuff, it doesn't really blend into me. I know what I'm doing. I know where I'm at. I know where I want to get to. I don't, it's sort of just, it's lovely that people enjoy what I'm doing. But it comes down to philosophy, I think. Sports commentary comes down to your philosophy leading in. And my philosophy has always been that if I was sitting next to you calling a game of football, you've been out there. I haven't. So what do I bring to the table? What I bring is I can call a moment, I can see the game accurately and put it into words, call the game and leave it to the experts to analyse what's going on. And the listener / the punter, they don't want my opinion, so I don't give it. And to be honest, I'm not that interested in my opinion anyway, so I wouldn't give it. And that's, you play your role, and it comes down to philosophy. A guy like Rex Hunt, when he was calling football, it was about entertainment, and he nailed it because it was about entertainment. People wanted to listen to him when the points were 60 points at the margin. And then Tim Lane would just call everything so splendidly and bring the theatre in and bring it to life through your radio. It was just different callers. Bruce McAvaney had this extraordinary way of lifting a moment, lifting you off your lounge chair when you were watching, and Dennis Cometti had such an understated way of using words beautifully. It's just not everyone's going to like my style. People are going to like it. People are going to hate it. It's a subjective thing. Go to the football. There's 7 radio stations doing the same game. They're all fundamentally doing the same thing, but it's all a style thing at the end of the day.
Yeah, and you can't change that. Yeah.
Who would you like if you were building like an ultimate commentary box? Who would you put in it? Like, give us like 2 commentators that are working together and maybe like a
specials and a boundary.
Specials and a boundary.
Well, I've been asked that a few times, and I must say everyone I've worked with, the play-by-play callers, are a delight. Like Dwayne Russell, he's a bloody champion. Like
he's brilliant to work with.
He is so and prepares so well. Is so generous. It's like you're working with a friend. And Anthony Hudson is just so easy to work with as well. I work with Howie on Thursday nights, and it's like working with your older brother. Like it's brilliant. We have an absolute ball. So a dream team. I mean, I idolise Bruce McAvaney. I'm an unabashed Bruce McAvaney fan.
Most people are.
Sorry, yeah,
most people are.
Of course.
Yeah.
I mean, what I say about Bruce is he's obviously had a magnificent career, and he inspired me to want to call things like the Olympic Games and call football. But he's also just a beautiful person. Like what you see on TV is what you get in real life. He's just a star and cares about people. You'd have to have Bruce in there. And the thing about Bruce is he's a brilliant caller. He's a brilliant presenter as well. So you'd have to have Bruce at the head of your coverage somewhere along the line. And you'd have to have Dennis in there. As I say, I'm a big Tim Lane man. I'm starting to name names now, and I didn't want to because I'm going to offend people. But as far as special comments go, what's really interesting about this subject is in America, they always talked about the big combinations like Al Michaels and Chris Collingworth at the NBC. They were the football callers for Gridiron, and were a combination for a long time. And we had that to a certain extent with Bruce and Dennis. And I don't know, have we nailed the commentator / special comments guy duo yet? Have we got the dream team yet? And I don't know if producers are genuinely looking at that for the different networks. I don't think they think about it, but it's an interesting thing. Who would be the best play-by-play callers into the best special comments? I think you probably find from the networks is probably a blend.
And what do you think would make that? Because I think that's a brilliant observation. I agree with you. That's got to be connection. Like obviously you're going to have the quality, and like you said, like there's so many great special comments. There's so many great play-by-play callers. But do you think like a combination like that would be about the chemistry and connection? It would be, right? No
doubt. So as I say, it comes down, 7 radio stations, 2 football stations doing TV. We're all doing the same thing fundamentally. But I reckon, to bring it back to football, it's like playing in the forward line together. You could probably get 2 gun play-by-play callers, and they just don't work together. They just don't gel. So I think a lot of that it's a bit suck it and see, to be honest. Throw them all together and see who works the best, and it's good because that all depends on who's working for who and all that sort of stuff. Yeah. But and then of course you've got the whole idea that TV and radio are 2 separate identities as well. TV is a completely different discipline to calling football on radio. And there's probably better TV callers and better radio callers and vice versa,
Is one harder than the other, or are they just different?
Well, I think radio's a joy because when you think about it, I think about TV commentary as like building a cake. So the first thing you do, you've got the football field on a camera. That is it. The second layer are all those other cameras, close-ups, head-ons. There's your 7 or 8 cameras. That's the next layer. Then your next layer, sound effects, umpire, players yelling at each other, crowd, etc. Then your next layer is your special comments, telling people at home what's going on. So the last layer is our job, the play-by-play, to just fill in the gaps, describe what's going on, and guide the narrative, and there's your layers. So TV has different areas of there's sort of different levels of hierarchy in a way that when you're doing a TV game, whereas radio, you've got a clean slate. There's no pictures. You're it.
It's just your ears.
It's just your
audience is the ears.
Yeah,
Listener.
So that's the fun of it, is that you can come on, bounce of the ball, and away you go. And, all you're really governed by, I work for SEN, so there's obviously some advertisements that we have to do. But apart from that, there are no rules. You got 3 or 4 guys in the box broadcasting a game of football. And I love that rawness part of it. You can be a bit looser. There's no producer saying, don't say that or say this. And it's fantastic. So the radio side of it is really good fun. And you also have to be more descriptive. And it's a great lesson for callers, because how many times do you say the ball's gone inside 50? But you then have to come up with 25 different ways to say that, because you can't keep saying that all over and over again.
Yes.
So it's a great thing for your vocabulary as a commentator as well.
And which 50 as well. And actually, so, I remember being young, struggling to know where the ball was, because I just, and so the radio commentary is so important for that, because you're like, it's in the forward, it could be on the forward pocket or the wing.
Correct.
It's like, it's your job to sort of explain that to me.
And I'll say something like, the ball is out of play 8 metres around from the left goal post. Something like you can be really, really detailed, which you would never say that on Fox Footy, You'd never. But you could even just things like, there's a supporter in front of us, and she's leaving, she's gone for the car keys, and also you wouldn't say that on television. No. The things you can say on radio that you're observing, even about the weather or just anything, it is really, really good fun. And you feel connected to the audience straight away because they're hanging off what you're saying. But there's one rule with radio calling, and it's not done enough. Even as a listener, you can't give the score enough. How many times do you turn the radio on and you've heard 5 minutes of play and you still don't know what the score is? It feels like as a commentator you're saying it too much, but you can never say it enough.
It's really interesting, mate, because some of this stuff you're saying might be obvious to you, but if you think about it as a listener or a viewer or an audience, it's like, they would be different. For instance, I think about it all the time because I'm working across both, but like you watching TV, like you don't need to know where the ball is because you just see where the ball is. So you as a caller, it's so fundamentally different.
Sure.
Right? Like I'm telling you, something you already know, but people who are listening or watching this, it's like, I don't think people kind of understand that. I just think, Matt Hill's commentates AFL. Good on him. But it's literally a completely different job.
Oh, for sure. And you can, as a TV caller, say, Schofield, Hill, Jones, Higgins, goal. Because you literally, that's what your job's to point out who's got the ball.
Yes.
But they can see what they're doing with it.
Yeah.
And I think, and it's probably a part that I try and work on is the words. It's using words correctly. And sometimes you nail it, sometimes you don't. And that's, again, comes back to the fact that it's a live thing. We don't get a second crack. And that's, I think, the attraction to it. I think that's really the attraction to it, that you walk out at the end of the day amongst a group of 4 or 5 of your colleagues thinking, well, we had 3 hours to bring that to life and to do it justice and to add something. And it's rewarding when you think you've done a good job.
When you have 2 callers, 2 play-by-play, how do you know when each one should stop talking and when the next one? Because I remember watching it in a commentary box when I was at the ABC, and I was like, oh, that's how they do it. But I don't know if every duo is the same.
Do you know what? It's amazing how many times you get asked that question. And it seems so easy to us. It's just you're literally tapping in each other.
Yeah.
So you know as a caller when you've had enough, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
You've done your little passage of play, and it's usually when the ball goes dead. And when the ball goes out of play or there's a stoppage, then it's time to give the hot hand pass over, and you literally just tap them in.
Yeah.
But it does get to a stage, it's like a relationship. You can end each other's sentences after a while. So, by the time you've done 10 games with someone, they know when you've had enough and they take over. And occasionally you might step over someone, but Yeah, overall, it's more working with the special comments guys because they're always got something to add and there's a bit of charades going on. Kingy will put his hand up. Jack goes like that as if to say, I just need to say something briefly.
Yeah, right.
And there's all a little bit of that going on. But that's half the fun.
If I pull you up on that point with tapping, right, and the break of play, and again, I probably understand that more than others, but a play that West Coast fans hear and seen a lot is the 2018 McGovern, Devati, to Ryan, to Sheed, right?
Yep.
But if you actually listen to that, Brian Taylor doesn't start the call. So Brian Taylor finishes it and he's Sheed from the boundary.
Right.
But if you watch that play, I don't know, this is terrible. I don't know who the other caller is, but they're actually going, so Treloar kicks it in and whoever the other commentator in goes, Treloar kicks it in.
It was Bruce, wasn't it?
I was going to say it might be Bruce.
Yeah,
and Bruce goes McGovern.
Yeah. As
the ball's in the air, he's obviously tapped Taylor because as the ball's in the air, then you hear Taylor go, Vardy, and then
right.
So it happens mid-play. So I just wonder, because I've always heard different things about Bruce, about he's very much
yes.
hey, like this is your moment kind of
Sure,
thing.
yeah.
Like that would be a strange time to swap over, right? As the ball's transitioning in a fast way.
Sure.
For commentators.
Well,
we're getting pretty technical here.
You are, but what your initial thought about Bruce is possibly the answer, that he decided to give Brian the moment. I've always had the opinion about, because you do at times you're calling a game and you think, oh, gee, the other bloke's had a lot of big moments there. I mean, I haven't had much to do, but it goes in roundabouts. And to be honest, I'm just happy to be there. I could care less if I called someone kicking their 100th or the winning goal. It's not what I'm doing it for. But yeah, it's lovely when you do get to call something like that. But I would say that's what happened. I would say, not knowing that Bruce has done the handball.
No, you just made me think of it while you're talking.
Yeah, the little clever pass out of
the correct. So, mate, we haven't spoken about it at all, but you're race calling. Did you start as a race caller and then into foot?
Yeah.
That might be a silly question, but...
Well, I had the best upbringing, I think. I was brought up by a single mum in Altona Meadows in Victoria. Not an affluent upbringing at all, but brought up into a family that adored Footscray. So grandma would go to the Footscray games every weekend, Whitten Oval. And those beautiful days of when you actually went to the football and do you remember your parents or your grandparents would say, oh, Joan up the road, yeah, we go to the football together. Well, what that actually meant was that Joan stands at the same set of steps every week at the Whitten Oval and she brings her fruitcake and gives it to everyone at half-time. Everyone had their spot. Yeah. Everyone seemingly had their spot around the Whitten Oval. And we would sit or stand on the steps near the main grandstand, forward pocket, Barclay Street end. And it was either that or going to the races with Grandpa. And they were cherished days. They were great days. So I started pursuing calling the races. I'd go to the track with a little dictaphone and a pair of binoculars, and I became obsessed after that. I went into all the spare broadcast boxes and just practiced and should have been chasing girls when I was 16 and going to nightclubs, but instead I was at Moonee Valley Trots every Saturday night.
Calling to yourself? Calling
to myself into a tape recorder, and you'd go home and listen to them. But you know what? I look back now and I think I wouldn't change it. Like, it was brilliant. And I'd get all of these little country meetings to call. My first ever race meeting was a place called Pooncarry, which is a little dust bowl town just above Mildura. And the year before, apparently, at their big meeting, there's about a population of 400 or something. And at their big meeting, the race caller didn't turn up and the publican decided to have a go and absolutely butchered it. And he got basically yelled off the platform, and then some of the crowd started having a go and the whole thing was a disaster. And the club decided to give... Yeah. So the club decided, we've got to give a kid a go, and I was sort of around practicing and things. So when I was 17, I flew up and called the meeting at Pooncarry and did some odd greyhound meetings and trotting trials and things and had a crack at everything. I called the dragon boats at Moomba.
Did you?
Camel racing and quarter horse racing and just to have a go, And so I always wanted to do it. And then I got a scholarship to go to Sky Racing when I was 19. I was on my way and lived in Sydney, called races up until I was 35 in Sydney, and then got asked if I would like to do a casual role calling some football at the ABC back in Melbourne and reading some sports news, and I did that. Which was a great couple of years doing something different. And I thought, this is probably for me, really. And then unexpectedly, one of my heroes, Greg Miles, retired, the voice of the Melbourne Cup, and there was the job that was destined to be mine. So I thought I better have a go at that. And so that probably stymied my football for a little while. And then here I am now doing both. But the race calling is, I think that the two of our greatest sports callers of all time, Bruce McAvaney and Ray Warren, were both race callers. And then you have a look at guys like Ray Hadley, David Morrow, who we sadly lost not long ago from the ABC, Peter Donegan, even Gary Clark, who calls the rugby union on Fox, were all race callers. So it's a great grounding, great discipline, and also dealing with the pressure of it. When you've got 24 in the Melbourne Cup and there's 50 million, something like that listing, it teaches you to handle pressure pretty well.
Do you have a big moment that jumps to mind where either the pressure felt the most, or maybe the
Melbourne Cup? Yeah. Melbourne Cup's the one, because it's just, again, how lucky we are that we get a public holiday for a horse race. It's so Australian.
Some do.
Some do.
Over in WA, we still have to go. We have to knock off work.
It's probably run at 8 in the morning or something.
Seriously,
it's champagne going at 9 a.m. in offices.
But I love the Melbourne Cup, and and it's just a privilege to do it. But I sort of are aware of the fact that Greg Miles always said it, and he's right, that you could call 1,500 races a year, but you're judged on the last 200 of the Melbourne Cup because it's just replayed over and over again. So I understand the pressure of that. But look, as I say, it's an absolute privilege to do it. So, as I say, I had that lovely upbringing. Was it an affluent upbringing? But it was an upbringing really of a dreamer, really, just to live the dream, and here I am.
So on the racing side of things, we were talking to someone recently. They mentioned that remembering the horse names is the real challenge when you're going to a full day of race calling.
Sure.
But it's forgetting the horse names from the races previous, because you don't want to remember, horse 6 is named, whatever it is, and then you think that's in the next race.
Yeah. Dan, honestly, I don't know what I'm doing to my brain. But so this weekend, for instance, we've obviously got Gather Round.
Yeah, so to celebrate Gather Round, Kayo Sports is just $1 this weekend for all new customers. Don't miss a moment and watch it. Every AFL game for just $1 for your first month. Head to kayosports.com.au to sign up. Of course, you work across Fox
$1.
And Kayo. It's $1. Right? $1 this weekend.
Just because.
I want to know your schedule this weekend, mate. Because
okay, so there's fly in for the podcast, of course. Fly in for the podcast.
BackChat.
Thank you very much. If you don't mind. And then off to the Adelaide Oval tonight for the big Adelaide Geelong game. Fly back to Melbourne. Usually I would do Friday night radio, but all the guys are here. Obviously everyone's here, so I'm not required. And I have to go to Bendigo on Saturday for 10 races on Saturday, so another 140 horses to learn there. And then I'll come back Sunday for Norwood for St Kilda GWS. So, but I think even the week after Easter is ridiculous. I think, I've got 3 footy games, 3 race meetings all around the place. But, wouldn't be anywhere else, to be honest.
But what's the switching of your mind like? You said, what am I doing to my mind?
Oh, well, why I say that is exactly what Dad just said. So you learn 12 horses, but then you've got to forget them and learn the next lot. So it's this concept of learning and then forgetting. So, goodness knows what I'm training my brain to do. In fact, I'm the best person to tell a secret to because I'll forget it in 5 seconds. Like, dead set, you could tell me one of your lifelong secrets and I won't be able to remember it because I'm literally, they say we've got a good, maybe we've got a bad one. Maybe we've got a brain that sieves, I don't know. But I find between the two disciplines, the only thing that's the same for me is, like horses wear the same different colours. Every race, jockeys are in different colours, whereas footballers are all wearing the same thing. So that's a different kettle of fish. But the one thing I do is when the players are warming up, I'll make sure I've seen every player in the flesh. Because the most important thing for a race caller is when the jockeys mount up 10, 12 minutes before each race. That's when you actually learn them. It's photographic memory. So I'll actually find I've met people and I'll say, I've met you before. Can't remember where it was, but I reckon I've met you before because I remember what you look like. Might not be able to remember you wearing a blue shirt, but I'll be able to say, I've met you before, So it's all photographic. So a race caller can't get a sheet of paper and learn them off that. It has to be when they physically see the jockey. So for me, when I'm at the ground tonight, I'll spend a good half an hour when the players are warming up, making sure I've just double checked every single player. And it might even be something really small. Like I know that Ollie Henry wears light blue boots. I know that Sean Manor wears black boots, and those little things like tattoos are good, man buns are good. Those
Geelong will be good.
Yeah, well, they've all got their, we might Bailey Smith the long line,
headband.
But those things are important for me anyway, because they're little visual clues of what we're seeing.
Does it ever throw you? You say Sean Manor wears black boots and he rocks up with the bright oranges.
No. Well,
that's why
literally had it last week. Brodie Kemp warmed up in white boots, started in purple boots, and then finished in white boots. So Kemp's gone for the pack. And I knew it was Kemp, but he had white boots on. I'm going, hang on a minute, where are the purple ones gone? So his whole package had changed, in my mind. So they can throw you a curveball occasionally. But look, a lot of it is, I've always taken it is, I learn footballers like I've just met them. So I'll look at their face and I'll go, oh, okay, you're Brodie Kemp, okay, Brodie. And as if I've made friends with them and learn their face. You've got to learn their faces. Otherwise, numbers can be handy, but you've got to know what they look like.
That's really interesting. So I wonder, again, I told you before we started, Adam Papaleo, I've got a lot of respect for how he goes about it, but I watch him pre-game. Because probably you're talking about styles. My style's probably a little bit off the hip sometimes, and I just I like seeing it and calling it. And my experience is probably the research I've done, and I like looking at it. It's very difficult to prepare for an incident and have an opinion on it when it hasn't happened.
Of course.
But I watch Paps, and it's just he's got double bifolded notes, and I watch him pre-game, and he's doing what you're doing, and he's just barreling blokes through the binoculars, and he just follows them. He's looking up and down and up and down.
Yes.
Well, meanwhile, I'm sitting there twirling a chopstick around him.
Yeah. See, I'd like to think that the more preparation you do, there'll be a day where there's a call that becomes famous or that I'm happy with, that it's like this one-liner, but it's taken years of preparation for, because, and that's where Bruce was very good, is that he would sum up a moment, that's the best I've ever seen, or that's the greatest we've ever seen, or whatever he would say, because he had done the prep and he knew. And so it's no good being a commentator. I don't want to be the commentator that's just screaming, going, what a goal, it's one of the greatest we've ever seen, when there's no basis for that.
Yeah.
You want to have the prep done. You want it to be considered, So, but because I haven't played the game, a lot of work has to go into that. I just want to be accurate. I just want to get to a stage where if I say Kemp's got the ball, I want Kemp to have the ball.
Do you watch much footy that you aren't calling?
Yeah, watch the previous game of the clubs that you're calling, but I do actually genuinely enjoy just watching football.
Yeah, that's more
which is great. I watch anything.
Are you like commentating in your head? Are you switching it off? Or?
No, it's hard not to listen to the commentators of anything. You know, I could be watching MotoGP or something, and it's hard not to take in what the commentator's doing and being interested. So to go back to what you were saying, well, I'm a bit of a sort of media nuffy in a way, you know, so I'll take in all of that stuff.
Yeah.
But I think you're talking about style. There's no right or wrong ways, and you've got to be yourself. It's no good getting behind a microphone and trying to be someone else, because it's just not going to work. You have to be yourself. And so, you know, what you're going to get with me is someone who's to be as accurate as they can, who is observing the game from basically a fan calling a game of footy.
I think we're actually similar in that regard. And my preparation is by visual. Like, I watch and consume way too much. Like, when you talk about media nuffy, I'm a media nuffy. Like, I watch everything. I see every game. I watch every show, every social clip, everything that ever comes out. I might not comment or say something, but I've seen it, guaranteed. And so, like, yeah, my preparation's that. Like, I know every player at the back, man. Like, I know them all and what they've done.
And that's fit. I mean, and that is good, because at the right moment, when something happens, it might be a player come off with a knee injury or something. Yeah. You'll know their history.
Saw that 4 years ago.
Yeah, which is, you know, perfect. The thing about commentary, there's one anecdote that I love, and that is the BBC tennis commentators when Andy Murray won Wimbledon. And you remember what a big time that was. It was huge, you know. He's won the last 3 points of the match. He's rampaged through the last game. And his mum was in the crowd and his wife, etc. And Wimbledon's gone crazy, you know. Of course, Wimbledon being such a, you know, gentlemanly kind of arena, but the fans are going ballistic. Andy Murray wins Wimbledon. BBC commentators probably have dreamt of calling a moment like that their whole life in front of millions. Andy wins the last 3 points, crowd goes ballistic. He goes and celebrates with his family. The commentators say nothing, haven't said a word, let it breathe, let the whole thing go. The next day, they get an email, not from the head of BBC Sport, the head of BBC emails them and says, just wanted to send you an email to congratulate you. That's the best commentary you've ever done. Sums up the fact sometimes you don't need words.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's knowing when not to say anything.
Yeah, that's cool.
Like that, Matt. That's very good.
We have a very iconic play from a Western Derby that would love you to take a look at, if you wouldn't mind. Jaden's got it loaded up on the laptop.
You're totally fine to deny this, by the way.
We'd love it if you could give it a modern take on the commentary. So there's obviously the call done by...
that was 12 years ago.
Contest, yep. 12 years ago, Hutto called it.
Hutto, yeah.
It's a great call. So...
there's no volume on that, is it? We don't need... Yeah.
So if the play starts by a very young Andrew Gaff. But could you run through?
You can watch it and then call it if you like, but we'd love you to...
Who's 31?
That's Will Schofield, my man.
I was thinking, what about the locks? Righto.
Load up Matt Hill here for a new take on a commentary call from a Western Derby moment.
I think it could be the greatest Derby moment of all time. Maybe, possibly.
Hang on,
Yeah, good. So
I have a love-hate relationship with technology.
Jaden, you're helping Matt out.
That's all right. I'm dragging it back. I want to get to you where you got the hand pass. I was actually sitting more enjoying your work, mate. It was a quality work, isn't it? Hey? All right.
I used to be able to run and bounce. Gaff starts with the ball.
All square here early in the third term. Gaff goes short at halfback. Schofield looks to the right, thinks about a bounce. Then he has a bounce. 2 bounces over the top. He wants it back, Schofield. He's running hard. 51 metres. Oh, he almost dropped his lollies there from 50. Launches. Schofield is going to be one of the great goals. Oh, in these early stages of these derbies, that's one of the best we've ever seen.
Very good.
Schofield especially goes... Yeah, just look at the young fella. Look, he's been an 800-metre champion growing up, Will Schofield. He sold David Mundy one of the great candies of all time to start the cliff. And he's gone on and kicked it. And he's dead right. I almost dropped that bounce, didn't I?
I think it's sort of just almost out of your right hand there. But I tell you what, you weren't astutely challenged there, were you? You had the hair, you had the beard, you had everything going on.
What's happened? Didn't go that.
Tell you what, mate, you had the pace.
The beautiful thing is, mate, Matt, is that every word you've just said is a past tense. Had the hair, had the pace. Like what happened to me? God knows.
But but in fair, I mean, this is where, I love asking, because this is the great thing. I'll never do it. Never bounce the ball along Super. No one will now. Subiaco Oval and kick a goal and do it like that. I mean, that must have been 20. What was it? It was 20 all early in the third term.
Yeah, mate. It was
a pretty dour game, Ross.
20 all third term.
Ross Lyon Dow operation.
Yeah, and you've just cut them apart.
Oh, yeah. I mean, where I kicked that goal from, that's where our race was. So I reckon in my career when we were at Subi, which was 10 years, I reckon I would have had 2,000 shots. From that exact spot. So I actually have kicked another goal in a derby, almost identical, right there, because we used to just pot shot goals. And so anytime our backman got there, I was, forwards, who are they? I'm going goals here. I just run the whole length of the field, stuff passing it. And so I've kicked a couple from there because we had so much practice at it. It's actually like your commentary. It's like, I've done it that many times that you get to a game and you're not thinking, well, I'm going goals here, but you get there and you're like, oh, this is going in. And interestingly enough, which doesn't get spoken about enough, our last year at Subi was 2018. Like it was, we were training at Laflane, which is where the new facility is, but we had our base at Subi. Sewage was running through the showers. They basically just turned all the bills off and we kind of had a building in Subi, which we would train out of, but like no one was giving it any love. And so we'd train at Subi, but train at Laflane. Anyway, the Domshi goal is that pocket, and it is the pocket that we as players would kick thousands of goals through our career. And so he's spoken about this privately to me. Like he's like, mate, I've kicked that goal 1,000 times, and I've kicked it after a signer in a grand final 1,000 times, and I've won the game 1,000 times. So people will say, and I take the piss out of Sheeta and say, oh, mate, you've never done that in your life. But
is it a little bit different to like the guy that's serving it out for Wimbledon? They've served it out 1,000,000 times.
That's a good point.
In training, but when they're actually doing it.
And I would say most superstars and most guys that are prepared do it, and they do serve it out and they do win. And yes, certainly the pressure's there, but that part of the ground, like I think that's helped probably a premiership.
I'd love to hear Hutto's call of it.
Hey, it's very good. Do you want to hear it?
Yeah,
it's
please.
Very good. Do you want to slack me it, Jaden? Just slack me it, so I'll put it to my phone. Yeah, great. Jaden can send it in.
Yeah, lovely.
What do you want? Once I get it, I'll play it to you. But what are you looking forward to for Gather Round, mate? Like we've got to have our good friends at Kayo have helped you get you in the door because you're a very busy man. I'm interested to know what you're excited about Gather Round specifically.
No, I can't wait to get to Norwood on Sunday.
Yeah.
So the producer rang me during the week from Fox and said we've decided that we're going to go full zaniness. We're going full commentary box in crowd, no roof, in the open, surrounded by people, in the bottom part of the grandstand, basically in just a wooden section of the grandstand, and it'll be Dwayne, myself and Mark Rasciuto just doing our best.
How good.
And I can't wait because all the AFL grounds are so good to call out of. I mean, I tell you what, I've seen some places calling horse races, scaffolding and, places with asbestos and possum piss and all sorts of places. But to actually go to an AFL ground is a delight to call. I mean, Adelaide Oval's is just divine.
Yeah.
MCG's, fantastic. They're all great. But to actually go to a ground like Norwood, which has got so much tradition and I mean, it's such a spiritual home of football in this state as well. There's a lot of passion there. And to be in the grandstand, I can't wait. It's just going to be fantastic. And the other part of it, I'm sure we'll have the other commentators around us too. So it's just going to be brilliant. It's going to be so so different. There's going to be one, and I'm sure it'll be a good game. St Kilda GWS, I'm sure of it. But also the fact that in 10 years' time, I'll still be able to say, "Oh, that day at Norwood, it was just brilliant." So I'm looking forward to it. Really looking forward to it.
So what that to me and our good friends at Kayo, $1 just this weekend. If you're listening to this and watching this, and I think what they will do is bring the TV audience to the game. Like it will be like you're sitting at the game. You'll be able to hear people.
Get some interesting feedback, I'm sure. Yeah.
Well, because everyone that hang around you, I guarantee, will be loving it because they'll get a live call of the game.
Yeah, well, and
you can cop that at home as well.
Parts of Norwood too. Apparently, the brick wall, the famous brick wall in the forward pocket, is something to be seen, and the narrowness of the ground, and just there's a food festival attached to it as well, and so it's just going to be a really fun day. So that's going to be a lot of fun, and. As I say, I think the highlight of the whole thing, and I still marvel at it, even I occasionally love to get the train to the footy on a Friday night, Thursday night, get off at Jolly Mott, that stuff at the MCG, and just to have the supporters in their scarves that are from opposing sides that can sit on a train and talk to each other after a game. I think we should be very proud of that. We've got one of the great games on earth, and our supporters have great respect for it, and I think we should, it's just, regardless of where we are, obviously South Australia is a magnificent place, and we could almost live in Adelaide, I tell you. It's pretty relaxing. It's bloody good.
Last time I was in Adelaide was Gather Round. I had a bloody good time, and I'm back again, so it tells you enough. Hey, we got this call from Hutto. You ready?
I love it. Yeah, I'd love to.
I'll play it for our listeners as well, because I think it's a great call too. Great moment.
Outside defensive 50, and they're outward bound again, the Eagles, through Schofield. Meandering, oh, look at that. He sold it beautifully. And Stroll's now away, and they've got to half forward all the way back. This great run from Will Schofield. He might fancy himself here. All the way from defence. It was worth a goal. Stand up for the Bulls and one. Will Schofield.
Love it.
I think our good friend Mark Rashudo comes in on the back of a special comment.
I think it would be funny how you could put little brackets, everything that Hutto said then, was meandering along the wing. No, I was absolutely flying, mate. And then he might fancy himself here, brackets. I bloody do fancy myself from 51.
My sort of translation, Will Schofield says, yeah, bloody oath, I've just taken 4 bounces the other way. Of course I fancy myself, Hutto. Mate, really brilliant chatting to be honest.
Oh, no, thank you for having me. And look, the loveliest thing is it's... talking about commentary and things is my wheelhouse. So sometimes I feel like I bore people to tears with it. But thank you for your interest. It's so much fun, and continue doing what you're doing, boys. This whole podcast space is a different thing for me, and I tell you what, you're kicking goals, so keep doing it.
There's a bit of feedback on the end for most of our audience, mate. So you're doing, as in, we cop quite a bit of feedback, good and bad, social media land, podcast land, but they're going to absolutely love this. I always say the best interviews we've ever done, I'm sitting here listening. I forget to ask questions sometimes because I'm so interested, and that's what I felt like just then, mate. So
lovely. Thank you.
That was brilliant. Off the top, very big thank you to Kayo Sports. Make sure you go and get yourself a $1 package if you're a new customer. This weekend only, you can grab that at kayosports.com.au. You can sign up there. A big thanks to our partners, Paywise, powering the podcast this year, TABtouch, ID Athletic, Whippersnapper Whiskey, Mumba Digital, Shelter Brewing Co, Leadable Precinct and Online Services, as well as Mumba Digital. There you go.
Fantastic. You see, you've got this advertising thing down pat. Seriously. Yep. Fantastic. Well, look, Kayo, $1. Look, it's a third of a Herald Sun, isn't it? It's half a cheeseburger. I mean, it's nothing, is it? $1.
Correct.
Okay.
Giving it away.